On our last program, we wrapped up things with a discussion of the preterite. The preterite can be tricky. Let's review a little before we move on. Section A. The preterite.
You can sort of think of the preterite as a simple past tense. It's used to express actions that were completed sometime in the past, actions that started in the past, and actions that were repeated a certain number of times.
Look at this sentence written in the present tense. Sam talks to his bees. In English, to change that sentence to the past tense, all we have to do is change the ending of the verb. Sam talked to his bees. We just tampered with the verb's ending, and you know what? That's what they do in Spanish, too.
Let's start by looking at the endings for AR verbs. These, as you know, are the regular endings for AR verbs in the present tense. But to conjugate a verb in the preterite tense, we use these endings.
Haste, o, hamos, hasteis, aro.
They work the same way as the other endings we've learned so far. Just knock off the infinitive ending and away you go. Check out the preterite conjugation of hablar.
Hablar. Hablé, hablaste, habló, hablamos, hablasteis, hablaron.
There are some things to notice here. First of all, note that the third person singular uses an O. Up until this point, the first person singular has sort of cornered the market on O's, but not anymore. Also look at those accent marks. Hey, we don't have to tell you how important they are. And lastly, look at the nosotros ending. It's the same in the preterite as it is in the present. Crazy! Now, watch out for preterite AR verbs in this dialogue.
Now let's take a look at the set of preterite endings you use for both ER and IR verbs.
Iste, yo, imos, isteis, ieron.
What's great about this set of preterite endings is that you can use them for both ER and IR verbs. So let's plug in a couple of verbs and see what we get. First we'll use beber, the verb for to drink. Then vivir, the verb for to live.
Beber, bebí, bebiste, bebió, bebimos, bebisteis, bebieron.
Okay, now vivir.
Vivir, viví, viviste, vivió, vivimos, vivisteis, vivieron.
Nothing too difficult. They're pretty similar to the AR preterite endings, except here we see lots of E's and I's instead of A's. And the nosotros ending is imos, whether you're dealing with an ER or an IR verb.
The main thing to remember is that the preterite's used for actions that had clearly defined beginnings or ends. Let's look at a few examples.
Let's check in on Danito and see if he knows how to use the preterite properly.
Hola. Quiero devolver esta camisa. Me la probé y no me cabe.
¿Cuándo la compraste?
La compré ayer.
Okay, let's see what we have here. It seems young Danito wants to return this shirt. He says he tried it on, but it didn't fit him.
That's right. Check out how he used the preterite form of the reflexive verb probarse, which means to try on. He used the yo form, me probé. That accented E is the preterite yo ending for AR verbs.
Then the store clerk asked him when he bought it. ¿Cuándo la compraste? She used the preterite to ending for the AR verb comprar. Compraste.
Then Danito shoots back with, I bought it yesterday. La compré ayer. I tell you, that's why I stick with sweater vests.
Absolutely! Let's watch it again.
Hola.
Hola.
Quiero devolver esta camisa. Me la probé y no me cabe.
¿Cuándo la compraste?
La compré ayer.
Did you catch all those preterite forms? Gotta love that conjugation. But alas, as hard as it may be to believe, the preterite isn't all fun, fun, fun. There are a few verbs that are irregular in the preterite.
Look at the verb pagar, which means to pay. This would be its preterite conjugation if it were a normal verb, but check out that yo form. Wouldn't we normally pronounce that pahe? Uh-huh. We lost the ga sound from the original verb pagar. To make sure we keep that ga sound intact, we stick a U in there to separate the G from that rotten E. Yo pagué? Yo pagué. Isn't that much better? The same sort of thing pops up with verbs whose stems end in C. Look at tocar, which means to play an instrument. Its yo form would be a little messed up too. Yo toqué? To make sure we keep that hard ka sound, we have to change the C to a Q-U. Yo toqué?
So what did we just learn? When we're conjugating a verb in the preterite yo form, if the stem ends in a G or a C, and our ending is going to change the way the verb is supposed to sound, we have to add a U after the G and change the C to a QU. That way the verb's sure to sound the way it's supposed to. Now let's move on to the real troublemakers, the usual suspects, like ser, ir, estar, tener, and hacer, the verbs that always seem to have issues.
Here's the conjugation for the verb ser.
Ser. Fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fuisteis, fueron.
What's the deal with that F? Doesn't look anything like the original verb. Nevertheless, ser is one of the most important verbs out there, so it's important to know. Besides, check out the preterite conjugation of the verb ir.
Ir. Fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fuisteis, fueron.
2 for 1. Yep, the preterite conjugations for ser and ir are absolutely identical. So when you see one of these in a sentence, you have to rely on context to tell you whether you're being or going.
Now let's look at estar and tener in the preterite.
Estar. Estuve, estuviste, estuvo, estuvimos, estuvisteis, estuvieron. Tener. Tuve, tuviste, tuvo, tuvimos, tuvisteis, tuvieron.
Yeah, they're a little weird, but since their irregular forms look so similar to each other, the preterite forms of estar and tener will be easier to remember if you learn them together.
Okay, one more irregular preterite verb to go. Hacer.
Hacer. Hice, hiciste, hizo, hicimos, hicisteis, hicieron.
So in the preterite hacer forms, the A sort of goes to an I. Other than that, not too scary.
Now that you know how to conjugate a few irregular verbs in the preterite, let's look at some of them in action.
Good day and welcome to my show. Yesterday was an exciting day. I finally caught the chupacabra. How did I catch it? I tricked it. The chupacabra took the bait and fell into me trap. He had to go into the trap in order to be able to get the apple. And now I'm going to study it. Actually, he's kind of cute. Good day, Choopy. Good day. Hey. Hola y bienvenidos a mi espectáculo. En el episodio pasado, finalmente yo atrapé a la chupacabra. ¿Cómo la atrapé? La engañé. La chupacabra tomó el cebo y cayó en mi trampa. Tuvo que ir a la trampa para poder tomar la manzana. Y ahora voy a estudiarla. De hecho, es bastante linda.
Are you beginning to get a feel for when to use the preterite? Just remember that this is the form you'd use to express past actions that have clearly defined beginnings and endings. Let's review.
The preterite tense is one of two ways Spanish speakers express actions that happened in the past. Specifically, the preterite is used to express actions that have clearly defined beginnings or endings.
The preterite endings for AR verbs are haste, o, amos, astes, and aron. They're attached to the stems of AR verbs. The set of endings that is used for both ER and IR verbs is iste, io, imos, istes, ieron.
Some verb stems undergo a slight spelling change when certain preterite endings are used, like G to GU or C to QU. These spelling changes help preserve the sound of the original verb. And then there are the verbs ser, ir, estar, and hacer, which have downright bizarre preterite conjugations.
Now that you're familiar with the preterite, let's